They not like us. They not like us. They not like us.
Yo, welcome back to Real Dads Real Talk. Today I'm excited. Y'all gonna see me smile a lot. You're gonna see me laugh a lot. Cause this episode should be a great one. I have a very, very special guest. This is the first time I have my brother, not biological, but he couldn't get any closer, here with me, Travis Douglas. I had the honor and privilege of meeting Travis back in flight school when we were there from, I think, 17 and beyond or something like that. 15 to 17?
Yeah, it's about like 15 to 17.
Yeah, see, my brain, the way it operates now. So 15 to 17, you guys have kind of already heard my flight school experience with being a single dad with custody going through. It was trial by fire, but it was brothers like Travis that kind of guided me through when there's a brother that I needed, a shoulder to cry on, a brother that kind of, with some good laughters, and just ultimately at the end of the day was always there to kind of look after me and look after Major. And honestly, now this is the first time we've been stationed back in the same area. He's joining me here in DC. I kind of let him introduce himself momentarily, but he is a GOAT. He's a very humble guy, so I'm gonna have to pull some of this information out of him because he ain't gonna share it too much. But he's a fellow Red Tail, fellow aviator. So we're gonna title this episode is gonna be Aviate, Navigate, and Communicate, the complexities of being the pilot dad. So without further ado, one of the best to ever do it, Travis Douglas.
Hey, I appreciate the warm intro. When we first met, it was a interesting, kind of meetup,
right,
so to say, right? Because there's not a lot of representation in Army fixed-wing. It's few and far between, right? So at any given time, you may see 1, 2, maybe 3 in an organization. And it was that overall guidance, because you don't know what you don't know, right? So you were there for a little bit before I got there, kind of showed me how to navigate throughout most of it, right? So for that, I give you nothing but thanks, right?
Right.
But anyway, long story short, Travis Douglas, originally from Queens, New York, right? Grew up in Queens, always been interested in aviation. That's been my passion since I was about 8.
Right.
Went to college for it. Didn't necessarily know where I wanted to go or how I wanted to approach it. Eventually ended up in the Army, enlisted, did that for a little bit, then decided, you know what, I see these officers, I see these commissioned guys doing the job. I think I could do what they do.
Right.
Went for it, OCS, and then the rest is history.
Right.
Yeah.
Steady making history. You hit on kind of not really having a true path. Like aviation, we don't see representation, right? So we're ultimately learning as we go.
Right.
So pulling each other. Same thing with fatherhood, is for me, I had somebody there, I'm sure you'll talk a little bit about your story, but that initial thing. And so the first question that I'll kind of go into with you is how has, those experiences, being always the only one, and everything that you've endured, how does that kind of shape your parenting when it comes down to your son?
Honestly, it kind of makes you approach it from a perspective of, you'll hear a lot of no's in life, right? Or you'll hear a lot of, hey, this isn't possible, without a solid reason as to why.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, my approach to it, using all those experiences, right, is taking the, hey, no, that's not, but also enforcing it with the why, right? So at least that way he gets the why behind something, and to know that if someone's just telling you, hey, don't do something without, or you can't do something without an explanation, then that it is truly possible.
Right. I mean, that's how I got here, was being told no. First of all, you tell me no, I'm gonna go do it. I just have to go do it.
Right.
You don't get the right to tell me no, right? But I feel like, you know, it's almost unfair to our kids a little bit. And I know your son is going to experience it at some point because you're going to be echelons up here when you're a lieutenant colonel. And he's probably around, I don't know, around that time, probably 7 or 8 years old. You know, around the point that he's like, oh, okay, my dad's a shit. You know, like, look at what he's doing. He's flying around in these aircraft. You know, I'm the same way. You know, Major is like, Major, I can tell when Major is like trying to throw a jab because he'll be like, ooh, what are you going to tell everybody today? You're an Apache pilot? You know, oh, yeah, I'm an Apache pilot. And so he'll joke with me, right? So, but it highlights though, right? Like that's what he's almost, have become synonymous with in doing certain things like the YouTubes and the speaking, that I feel like, how do I not overshadow him? Like when it comes to him developing his own path, right? So have you like thought about that? Like,
and I think part of it too is not being forceful with them, right?
Right.
Because as you watch them grow up, you see they have like varying interests in all these things. Don't try to, at least for me, the way I look at it is not trying to hold him to one thing. He's like, oh, I want to try this, or oh, I want to play with this or whatever. And it's like, hey, go explore, go see what you like, and letting them be the ultimate deciding factor of where they want to go in life.
Right.
I think that is key, because would it be nice for him to follow? 100%. But at the same time, you don't want him to, like you said, right, be trapped in your shadow or feeling the pressure of, oh, I gotta achieve or I gotta do all this because my dad is this great person.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think giving them the autonomy to kind of pick what they want based on their interests or what they excel at would help overcome that like overshadowing factor.
Right. It's easier said than done.
It is.
Major has the name Major. You know, we're about 2 weeks probably from our promotion list, 2 to 3 weeks maybe, hopefully by the end of October. I mean, I don't know about you. I'm eager to see how this shapes out.
Likewise.
Right? If I'm so fortunate, you know, and I get picked up, there's 2 Major Mannings in his house, right? And for Major, he's like, well, I'm the original Major Manning. You know, you're a fraud. You know what I mean? I know he's waiting to kind of say that, right? But it's almost like I put him on this path because everybody thinks he was named Major for something military-like, right? He honestly got the name Major because he was a major event, you know, moment in my life, right? He was a major deal, and my mom never missed major moments, right? So when I had the opportunity, you know, I named my son Major. But the other day we went to football practice, and man, I'm passionate about football, Trav. And they went out there game 1, got waxed. It was like 95 to like 0.
Man.
And so Major was out in Hawaii last year, 2 years ago, played his first full-year contact football, stud, right? And I mean, them Hawaii boys eating their spam and their rice, they eat some big boys, like my size. And then makes, you know, Hawaii MVP team. So I'm like telling him, like, we go home, you playing where I grew up at, like them boys ready, hope you come ready. He ran tracks, and so he goes out there and plays football, and they get swept. And then the second game, I'm watching, and he just don't appear in it. I'm just like, this kid is a shell of himself. So of course I'm getting a little tight on the sideline. I'm like, man, like, you know, about to start saying some choice words, right? But in the midst of it all, I kind of asked myself, does he look like he's having fun? You know, does he want to be here, right? And when it was time to leave, I kind of pull them all to the side, and we're walking back to the car, and Pre's there, and I'm just like, man, listen, do you want to turn in your equipment? Like, if you don't want to play football, don't play. Like, I don't want you to strap on a helmet and some shoulder pads doing something that you don't want to do because you think that's what I want you to do, because you're like, my dad played sports. He played football. He was good at it. I have to do that, and then you go out there and get hurt because your heart's not in it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm trying to like have this conversation. He's like, no, I want to do it, and I'm like, do you really want to do it? Like, what are you going to do? I mean, your son's a little bit younger. Like, I don't know if I've like gone wrong or astray on telling him like success is whatever you want to do, man. You don't have to play. If you want to run track, go run track. But naturally, I don't know if our sons are just trying to be us in a nutshell. I mean, of course, we want our kids to kind of grow up and be like us. So, like, what are you going to try to do in order to like make sure that he's comfortable in taking his own road, his own path?
Well, honestly, it's tough, right? Because you want to be there to let him know that, hey, it's okay if you have like an off day, or or if like the game doesn't go as how you expected, or you don't play as good as you did like previously, because I feel as if like, when they hit that point, it's just like the approach for me, because even now it's like I have to catch myself, because we'd be, let's say, like doing a puzzle, and he gets frustrated and then he stops and he's like, oh, I don't want to do it. And I have to catch myself, because I'll, just be like, well, you said you wanted to do this and we're doing it. Why are you stopping? Because I don't want him to give up. I want him to keep pushing for it, right? To figure it out, if it's a challenge, whatever the case is. But even I have to catch myself too and say, like, you know what? Give him a little bit of time and he's going to come back to it. And I find like that helps. Giving him that second to pause, and then kind of break it down for him differently. Like, all right, hey, what were you struggling with? And kind of walk him through it, or show him how to correct it, so that way he can like better problem solve or better figure it out. Yeah. And that might be it, right? Like with Major, if it's a missed tackle, or walking through it with him, and I don't know, maybe that could lead him to figuring it out, or just like little hints, because we don't want to give him the answer right, but at least show them like, hey, look at it from this point of view, approach it this way, so that way they don't give up, or don't feel as if we're like trying to pressure them to do what we want them to do. Right.
Yeah, that it takes a fine balance to kind of like go back and forth, and so like you said, catching yourself. I've had to catch myself a lot of times, especially going back to flight school. Flight school was a humbling experience. I could not hover that aircraft. Well, you remember, I could not hover. I couldn't figure it out. So I went home a lot of days like frustrated, and I did not know how to decouple from work failures to like then going home, and like your kids want to love on you, and you're like, I want to love on to you, but I'm a failure right now. Like, I just spent the whole day, the only one like you talked about, and then we end up being the ones that are struggling the most. So
because it's that added pressure, right, of feeling like, well, I have to do X, Y, and Z times 10 in order to, get to where I want to get to. Right. And any little minor setback is, super frustrating. You kind of look at it and you're like, man, what am I doing? Why am I messing this up? Because it's, I don't know, that's like just part of the, I don't want to say game, but part of how it all goes.
Yeah, you gotta be. I've learned to kind of be optimistic, even when I'm really not. And I feel like our kids are observing that. Yeah. And so throughout those flight school experiences, I think honestly has made me a better father. Because I've never experienced failure the way I did in flight school until I finally figured it out. I finally clicked, right? Yeah. And I tell the story all the time, man. I learned how to fly from a non-minority, actually a white, officer that like taught me how to fly. And then I was dropping that man off at early morning, 3 a.m.s, picking them up right after flight school. So it was some long days. And when I finally got in the aircraft with her, and she was just like, hey, I want you to fly on the controls with me. I'm flying with her on the controls. She starts talking to me about major. My mind is at peace, you know, and then next thing you know, I'm hovering the aircraft, all because I have essentially removed my own self-doubt. I stopped being my own worst enemy in my brain. Because it's like I show up with failure. We show up with failure, you know, and then we go home and we're expected to be, you know, the best parent, the best husband that we can possibly do, when all in my brain throughout the day was immense failure or immense pressure, you know, through all the things. And like our job, there's things that you can mess up on. There's just mistakes that you can't make.
Yeah.
For you, like, what are your coping mechanisms, or how do you kind of channel your energy in the right way? Because you got a pretty important job where you work. You know, how are you able to, you know, being the only one? I've been in your AO, you know, so you're the only one again, of course, you know, and expectations are high for you. Expectations have always been high for you, you know, but then you go home to your wife and then you go home to your son. You know, what are your coping mechanisms to try to like branch away and separate, you know, that career life and then that home life?
Well, for me, like the minute I park in the driveway and I get out that truck, that's it.
How long do you sit in that truck is the question.
Probably like a good 5-10 minutes.
That's not long enough. You better sit longer.
Because there's, you know, I had the same struggle of, all right, I'll get home, had a bad day, in a bad mood. I don't want to do nothing. I don't want to be bothered. I don't, you know, but it hit a point where I was like, you know, you can't keep living like that.
Right.
So you find ways like, hey, all right, hey, you know, this didn't go as planned today. There's always tomorrow, unless it's a glass ball. You can't drop glass balls. Rubber balls are easy, glass balls are not.
Right.
You just gotta make sure that you're at least separating the two. And for me, it's the minute I step out that truck, it's different hat goes on. The other things you can worry about it later.
Right.
But it's hard because even though you're off the clock, right, quote unquote, it's 24/7.
Ain't no off days.
There's not.
Right.
So you just have to, unfortunately, compartmentalize it, and you go back to it later.
Right.
My way of viewing it is like, I have a shelf. I have all these boxes. Work is in its own box. Home stuff is in its own box. When it's time for work, I unpack that box. I go through it, sort through it, filter it out, find whatever the issue is, and work through the problem.
Right.
Same thing with home. And it's only until, I want to say, my last year in command that I was like, finally like, all right, I got it. I can manage the two.
Right.
Because I'll find myself diving into work head first, and then everything else
gets left to the wife.
Gets left, right? So now it's, all right, work is work when it's 9 to 5, etc. And then home, you deal with everything home related.
Right. I'm still struggling with, you know, that whole concept of separating the two. For me, I've almost had to merge the two in some aspects, right?
It's a fine balance.
Like even up until last week, right, I decided to check my LES. I never look at my LES. And sure enough, I checked my LES 133 days of leave. And I'm having a conversation out loud, and my boss over here, he's like, you have how many days of leave? I'm like, 133. He's like, and you didn't take any paternity leave, right? So you have 90 days on top of that. It's like, yeah. He's like, take leave. And probably normally I would have been like, nah, I want to grind. I want to go, right? And I find myself asking myself, why? Like, why do you have this desire to continuously want to work? For whatever it is, I feel like I want sustained success.
Yeah.
What is the legacy? And unfortunately, and I could be wrong, for minorities in our career field, like the moment you take a day off or you take a step back, somebody's already like taking your position and outworking you. So it's like, yo, I don't have time to take a day off, because what I'm trying to leave to my wife, what I'm trying to leave to my kids, that legacy, yo, I have to stay on the constant grind. But I got to a point though where it's like, okay, there's only so much that you can go till it starts to impact your family. It hasn't negatively impacted my family. Now, I think we were blessed, or I was blessed enough to not really cause any real issues, but I decided to take some leave, man. So, you know, between now and, you know, essentially April, I'm taking like 60 days of leave, right? And I've been able to just go home and just focus on, you know, either the wife or the kids and things like that. But it's hard to balance all that we do, or trying to do, all that we're trying to accomplish, and then go home and then try to do this work-life balance that the Army says, you know, have and exist. I don't believe in it, Travis.
No, I mean, everyone says like, all right, work-life balance is a real thing, but in reality, I don't think it is, right? Because without fast-paced everything is, you like you said, a day, you're gone for a day. So much happens in a day that when you get back, you feel behind.
Right.
Or you feel like, man, I shouldn't have taken that day. But I feel like we have to give ourselves some grace, because at some point you have to give yourself a mental break.
Right.
You have to step back from it, because we can only be effective and successful if we're sharp and rested.
Right. Yeah, that break, I hope my wife heard that, you know, sitting wherever she's sitting, about giving yourself a break. Because she's honestly a lady version of myself on a constant grind. We talked about it in a previous episode of all that she's trying to do. But it goes back to, at the end of the day, making sure that we're being deliberate in certain aspects of parenting, being deliberate in aspects of, you know, the spouse's life and everything that we have going on, and just being mindful of that. But like you talked about, that work-life balance, man, you know, they always say, make sure, and we know the chart that we're talking about. Chrissy, remind me to send you that chart, right? That chart that talks about the vital events versus what's important, the old chief of staff kind of slide. And I've tried to like mirror that, and I've kind of like sent it to soldiers, like, yo, this is, make sure you are being present when you're supposed to be present. Man, it don't work. I remember Priya in the hospital giving birth to Amira, and I remember General Brunson coming out to the AO, and I had kind of worked the event for the Aloha Rocks chapter out there in Hawaii, and he was coming to speak, and the doc was like, yeah, your baby's not coming for at least tomorrow. You got about at least 12 to 13 hours. And I was like, you mind if I go to this brief? Sure enough, left the hospital and went to a brief to go, you know, talk with General Brunson and whatnot. And it wasn't until, you know, a old brother of mine was kind of like, man, you honestly left the hospital to go here, military brief. And I was like, you know, for whatever reason, I feel like I could kill two birds with two stones. But it was like everything that we've kind of experienced in our career upbringing and going throughout those trials and tribulations, that it was just like I had to be there, right? I had to, one, you know, be there to support another minority leader at the top. I had to be there for my own self-soothing initiative types of ways. And it, you know, really highlighted. So it was those, you know, types of experiences that, you know, for me, I could have missed out. I didn't, made it back, of course. I could have missed out on something beautiful, or something tragic could have happened, and I was, you know, focused on something militarily. So, you know, what's your method, man, to make sure that you don't miss those key events when it comes down to those important life moments?
I'd say right now I'm batting about at 80%.
Better than me.
Still, you still, it's hard, right? Because we have things that we want to achieve.
Right.
We have these goals, aspirations, whatever you want to call it, right? From a work perspective, and then also from a, you know, at-home family perspective.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes I find myself wanting to go fly or wanting to go execute whatever mission, not realizing like, hey, no, I gotta be home. I need to tend to, you know, family matters.
Right.
Sometimes I take the L, you know, I make up for it later, but you don't want to necessarily have to do that, but I find myself making up for.
It comes a lot. It happens all too often. But like you talked about trying to achieve in that legacy. What does it mean for you to leave a legacy for your son? Because you're going to be a GOAT, man. And of course, that's that humility. There have been very few African American aviators in the entire branch. There's even smaller of a populace to be doing what you're doing right now in time and space at the echelon that you're doing it. And so what does that legacy mean to you to leave for your son to kind of follow behind?
I think when I break it down on it, when I think about legacy for me, man, it's just someone that he can look up to. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if he does or follows in my footsteps, as long as he knows that he can achieve whatever he puts his mind to, right? Because more time than most, we have these dreams, right? Mm-hmm. And we don't capitalize on it, because a dream is just a goal without any kind of push behind it. Right. You're not going after what you want.
You been watching my podcast, man?
Nah, man. I saw like the first 2 episodes.
No, I'm not even talking about this one.
Which one?
Literally, I just did a podcast with Lieutenant Colonel Sims in the Pentagon. And he was like, what is the difference between, Matt, your dreams and reality? And I was like, dreams are exactly what you just said. They're your goals, they're your desires, but it's without action. Yeah. It's without input. And reality is dreams, goals, and your input is going to match your desired outcome. And you're hitting on that.
Yeah, no, that's always been my like philosophy on how I see things. Even like my soldiers, when I was in command, I would tell them the same thing. They're like, oh, I want to do X, Y, and Z. Well, what steps are you taking to get after that?
To happen.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't looked into it. Well, then that's what it'll be. It'll forever be a dream. If you want to make that dream a reality, you have to make these steps to get to that end goal.
Right.
And if you're not, then you're just doing yourself a disservice. You might as well dream about something else.
Right.
So I've always, anything that, all right, hey, when I was flying 60s, all right, well, this isn't necessarily where my end goal is. Mm-hmm. What can I do to get after it? So you put in a little bit of elbow grease, a little research, and you just attack it.
Right.
If you don't, like, it'll just stay there. Like, what if, or I could have.
Right. That drive had to come from somewhere. I mean, I would assume from Queens, you probably experienced some trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
I 100% experienced some. How do you pass that same grit, that same fight and determination down to your son when he doesn't have to have that type of fight or resiliency or grit, because we have already essentially provided a better upbringing where life is like almost easy for them, right? How are you going to balance that? Because you've already worked hard to give your kids better than what you probably have had growing up. Not knocking any parent, but we always want to give better than what we ultimately have. How are you going to balance that when it's like, our kids are growing up more privileged than we did?
I think for me, part of it was what I see around me, right? Mm-hmm. So family, growing up around all the aunts, uncles, just seeing them go after things that they wanted in life or achieve things, right? Like their level of success.
Right.
Where it's like, all right, hey, you can't quit. You can't be comfortable with what you currently have, right? Having that thirst for more. Mm-hmm. Like, all right, hey, yes, they'll grow up a certain way, but it's still instilling in them the fact that, like, if you want more out of life, you have to work for it.
Yep.
You have to, want to achieve and be better than those around you. And that to me is like everything. Like your surroundings and those that, are around you is what kind of propels you and pushes you to be better than.
Right. I think it's, exposing our kids to different environments.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I try to do every year with Pre, that we're actually going to be doing in November, is reminding Major, because he can understand right now, but you know, Amira and Maverick are going to be the same way. Is, you know, when it used to be like Christmas time, Major had to gift away old toys in order to know that Santa was going to give you new toys, right? Being a giver and exposing him every opportunity that I had that, yo, this life can quickly take a turn for the worse for you. So we would always go and do these food drives in Hawaii, and give a gift with Pri and all these other aspects to make him hand food to homeless. And some of his friends used to join. And for me, it was like exposing him to more than just a nice home. I ain't never had to worry about a Capri Sun or a Gatorade not being in the refrigerator. Lunchables are there. You know, you ask him what he want for dinner, he'll be like, I have shrimp. Like, oh, that must be nice, man. Me, I'm about to go get them shrimp noodles, you know, and that's what I'm about to eat. But for, you know, 11-year-old to be like, I want shrimp and hibachi every other night, it's wild times, you know. So I try to seize every opportunity to just, you know, open his eyes and horizon to, hey man, this is how other people in this life work and live, based off of, you know, things that happen in their life to sometimes no fault of their own. And so that's one of the things that I've done with Major and will continue to try to do, to just like you talked about, expose them to different atmospheres.
Yeah, help build that level of empathy, right? And understanding, because you don't know how the world's going to turn out or how it's going to shape out.
Yeah.
But at least that will allow, you know, for him to kind of, or for our kids in general, right, to be decent human beings, because ultimately that's what we want. Right. So I think that kind of leads into it like perfectly. Like, hey, look, you may have X, Y, and Z, but there's some that are out there that are less fortunate. However, we do our part to, you know, give back and to contribute or help out as best as we can. So no, that's a solid approach to it.
That's a way. What do you think so far, you know, through your fatherhood, that has been your biggest lesson learned?
Patience. Patience.
Still learning it.
I don't think I'm the most patient person.
Right.
Maybe part of it is from being in the military, right? Because you say, hey, do X, and you expect it to be done, right? To the T, or in a timely fashion.
Right.
But knowing, like, all right, hey, it's kids. They're gonna find every excuse in the book to not do it, or they're gonna, you know, get distracted by something else, and just being patient with them and allowing them to complete the task.
Right.
Versus getting frustrated and then going straight to the punishment phase.
Oh yeah. The military is a blessing and a curse. Is that it exposed us, it has provided us certain great things that we can do, but at the same time it handicaps us. It handicaps us mentally to a way of thinking. Even though the military doesn't tell you what to think, it teaches you how to think.
Yeah.
And there's levels to it. It is levels to time management. There's levels to command. There's levels. And me and my wife will be having a conversation. The other day we were talking about I think Amira whining, right? And for her it triggers, right? Like she can't do the noise. She that doesn't do well for her. More so probably because she has Maverick, you know, crying behind all day while she's trying to accomplish other things. When I go home, right, it's probably frustrating to her, right? And this is where I'm probably a lack of, you know, I have blind spots, right? Because I go home completely unfazed, like you talked about. I put that hat on, baby's crying, and I'm like, tune it out. That's what I tell her. She's like, they're whining. I'm like, tune it out. And then she's like, well, this has happened. I was like, well, in the training that we went through, you know, down in Novasul. I'm like, well, in this training, this is how they taught us to cope with noise, right? And she's like, immediately I just see her in the corner of her, she's like, here we go, right? With this level of experiences that you've gone through, right?
Yeah.
But it's like not the normal person kind of goes through that, right?
No.
And so my mentality being handicapped is like, it's almost making it like I'm not able to relate to my wife in that situation because of what, you know, we have gone through training wise. And it's like sometimes, and it's no fault to my own, right? Like I'm not saying that 99.9%, I'm sure you probably do the same thing, right? You're probably like, hey man, I've experienced certain things in this uniform that has prepared me for this situation. This is what you got to do to cope. And your wife is like, shut up, I ain't trying to hear it.
Yeah, half the times your suggestions or your ways to solve the problem, it's like not needed. Yeah, they're like, well,
my wife's laughing. She will tell you 99.9%, Matt, I don't need your way of handling this solution, right? That's patience, man. I just say just continue to work on it. I think every dad is probably fighting that moment. What's been your most proud moment as a father?
Man, watching them figure out like solving a problem or something like that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like without any help, or he has like these magnet tiles or whatever. Just the level of creativity, you know, for a 3-year-old.
Right.
It's like mind blowing. Mm-hmm. It's like who taught you how to do that? And he's just figuring it out, or knowing how to operate an iPad.
Right.
Without any, you know, like it's like they were born with the all right, hey, look, I'm looking for this. I can go find this. Okay, these are my shows. This is what I can. Mm-hmm. And it's like, where are you getting this from?
Right.
And to me, that is watching that unfold, or watching him like learn, figure stuff out, is, you know, to me, like the proudest piece of it.
Yeah, my wife has that too. I know I talk a lot about my wife, man, but I live a lot through her. Mm-hmm. She's a you know, first time, 2-time mom, and when she does the same thing, she watches Amira like starts to do like sign language and telling you more, and she's just like, oh my God. You know what I mean? Go get my wife's phone, probably 10,000 photos from today. You know what I mean? Those proud moments that I would say, yeah, that we get to capitalize on. What would be your advice for somebody navigating, you know, the complexities of aviation, feeling like, you know, a minority, and your ability to decouple that some people can't decouple? What would be your biggest advice for that aviator dad out there right now?
Taking a step back. When you take a step back, you see the whole picture. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, like, family, you only got one family. Mm-hmm. Like, the Army's gonna Army.
Yep.
I'm not saying, like, drop the ball or, like, you know, don't take your job seriously, but take care of your family. Because if you don't, then you're gonna miss out on those moments. And when you're old and gray, you're gonna look back and you're gonna beat yourself up because you should have done this, or you should have been there.
Right.
Don't make it a should have. Just focus on that now. Divide or put aside time. Like when you're on leave, be on leave. Don't worry about work, because it's gonna be there. And like you said, right, there's always someone that can hop in and figure it out. Put trust in your team that they're gonna get the job done. And if you need to, put your focus on family, for like, be there for like the big events, and try not to miss too much of the little ones.
Right. It's, you know, I hate the saying, if the Army wanted you to have a family, they would have issued you one. It's honestly a saying that we need to like eradicate from mouths and out the Army, because it's just negative for one. Right, and we don't need to kind of instill that, engrave that into the next generation of leaders coming up. Mm-hmm. Like, your family is at home, like that's your family. And like you say, the Army's going to continue to go rolling along. It's going to continue to do, you know, great things for God and country. But yeah, your family is it, you know, and you're going to hang that uniform up at some point. You're going to take it off at some point. What will you have once you have, you know,
exactly.
once that's it? And so for me, I'm kind of like trying to shape my parenting and dad life to where, you know, the uniform is not who I'm synonymous with, you know, more than just captain or that's the aviator guy, but I should be known first as dad and husband, you know, and then, you know, aviate of course after that. But, you know, I think the constant pursuit of perfection that we're looking for and all the things that we're trying to accomplish in the aircraft, that can be done by village, you know, and that's been done by all of us coming together. And you know, when one person takes a step back, the other person takes a step forward, and continue to do that, because you know, the most important thing that I think that we can give our children is being an active, loving parent. You know, giving them that deliberate love and that deliberate affection is what matters the most. And so, you know, with all of that said, you know, Travis, I appreciate you coming out today and kind of discussing that work-life balance, and hopefully there's some cadet, some ROTC person kind of, you know, really takes an honor of really looking at this video and kind of seeing an icon in yourself, and the things that you're being able to do up until this point, you know, and how you're able to navigate, how you're able to aviate, and how you're able to communicate, and then most importantly, decouple from your career to the time you pull into your driveway and hop out of that truck to go into being a deliberate parent. As I think it's a lot of lessons learned that a lot of people can take away, because I'll tell you, that's something that I think every soldier probably struggles with is when, you know, I struggled to leave the building up until 15:30, and then after that, I'm outie.
15:30,
that's easy.
That's easy.
Oh yeah.
Like,
but I'm gone.
It's like you said, man. You just have to stop at some point and say, like, all right, hey, this is it for the day. And you know, anything is possible. Right. You just have to learn or continue to work at that balance, because it's not easy. Right. But as long as you keep putting in that effort and you keep trying, the, you know, steps and everything else becomes second nature. Right.
I think for me, the amount of hard work that we have put in, you and I, as well as some of our peers, we have been on a constant pursuit and constant push to try to get more minorities into the door. I feel like we've gotten to a point that we can almost let the train drive itself, and that the representation is just us doing what we do each and every day. But the most important thing that again, going back to it, that we can do is be present, you know, fathers and husbands is what matters most. And so to all our family out there that joined us in today, you know, I would say, here's what success looks like. Don't think that you can't accomplish something because you don't see representation, because it's sitting right here. And Travis Douglas, who again is a great man of honor, dignity, respect. I appreciate you coming out today and just sharing a few moments with me, and sharing all again your lessons learned with the audience. I hope everybody out there has kind of taken some lessons learned away. I hope everybody goes out there and learns that there'll always be a task that you complete, always be something that you got to get done. But it comes a point in time that you got to put that away. You got to put it to the side, and you got to focus on what matters the most, and that's your family. And so do that. Be deliberate with loving your kids. Be deliberate with loving your spouse, and understanding that at the end of the day, that is the most important thing that you can do, is raise the next generation of children that see what love is all about. So we appreciate you guys, but until the next time, peace out. Real dads, real talk.